Welcome to episode 1 of Above the Culture podcast with JS and Mo. Hi, I'm JS.
And I'm Mo Glover.
And our first episode is focused on activism and the arts. And in this time we're living in, nothing is more important than discussing what's going on in the world and what we can do to make it better.
I'm so glad we're starting with this, with an episode with this subject. It's really important in these times. It's just important in general. I think for both of us, we've sort of always been active in regards to being aware of what's going on with our community, and specifically how it reflects on our own art. And it's Black History Month, so that's another connection. And so it's perfect that we're starting this podcast, even though Black History is every day for us. But it's great that we're starting it with Black History Month to bring some awareness to Black history, and of course, the arts is a part of the history. And I'm so happy that we're having some really awesome guests as well.
Absolutely. For our initial episode, we have the incomparable, the legendary Family Stan that will be joining us shortly. We're going to start with good old 1619 when our first forefathers came to this country. And even then, we used the arts as a form of protest. Whenever you hear Wade in the Water or Down by the Riverside, these were songs that were used for our ancestors to escape bondage and get to freedom. And so we have a long storied history of using the arts in order to speak about our oppression and to also fight our oppression. And these are our weapons of choice.
Can you explain maybe someone specifically that you might have been inspired by?
To give you a little backstory of myself, I'm JS. I am a trumpet player and a composer, an educator. I have music out, and mostly I focus on Black music. So whether it's jazz, whether it's R&B, whether it's rock, whether it's soul, gospel music, I pretty much run the gamut of Black music, classical music. It's all Black music. And yeah, that's what I do.
Well, can you just name maybe an influence in music that definitely embodies activism, but not only embodies activism, but have inspired you?
I would like to start with John Coltrane. And most musicians, especially jazz musicians, can attest to this. John Coltrane was a staunch advocate for not only activism, but the arts. He used his art. I mean, just think about A Love Supreme. Like what he was doing was giving honor to the highest power he could through music. And this was music that was blasting throughout the 60s out of Black homes. And it was music that got our ancestors through that time. And there's nothing more powerful than giving honor to uh, something higher than yourself to get you through hard times. And we find ourselves living in these times now. And that's why a lot of artists are not only influenced by artists such as John Coltrane, like Marvin Gaye, like Amiri Baraka, like Alvin Ailey. Um, we all are influenced by these masters of the arts and using our platform in order to express our activism, to express how we feel about the climate of the world today and how we can change it for the better.
Very cool.
I would like to ask if for those who do not know, who is Mo Glover?
Who is Mo Glover? Mo Glover is, I am a woman. I'm a Black woman. I'm a mother. I am an artist. I am a fashion designer. I am a teacher. And, you know, I can just go back in history and explain, you know, in regards to fashion, you know, how activism has been relative to it. But I mean, I just feel like every day, you know, people like us probably is like we're like walking activism. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely. Yes.
it's you know, being you know, and I don't want to just keep stating that, you know, reminding people of the obvious, but you know, being a Black woman in itself and thriving in the
It's a
world.
form of protest. You're right.
It's definitely resistance, you know, of stereotypes. And, you know, so, but being a creative and being in the fashion industry is another, just the, you know, from the way I may choose to look or dress, you know, and what I listen to, what I read, that's just, that's activism. Well, it's funny that I, you know, it's for me personally, it's been a progression, right? And so when we grow up, we're learning about ourselves, we're getting to know ourselves, and so we change, we evolve. And I feel that the more I've gotten to know myself, um the more, not only the more comfortable I've been, but the I feel like that's where my best art and my best work and design has come from, when I've been truly true to myself. And it just happened to sometimes be a little bit more bolder than maybe people may think is a status quo, or a little bit more unapologetic. And because I'm celebrating what I feel is part of me.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a good rapport, is because I'm also an ex-Marine. So I cannot tolerate BS. I'd rather somebody tell me straight up what it is so I can get through it, deal with it, and move on. And that's why we're friends, because you give me your opinion, you tell me what you need, what you want, unapologetically.
I know
And
sometimes you're probably like, girl, if you don't stop.
oh, no doubt. Don't get it twisted. I mean, it's like I'm not going to say it ain't a bit much at times, but it's honest and it comes from a love space. And so, being that I recognize that, that's why we get along so well.
Yeah, you get it, that when I'm like, it's when I'm a certain way and I speak to you, and it's because I care.
Right. Like, I know for a fact you don't want to see me messed up. You want to see me succeed. And so, because you want to see me succeed so much, you're going to say things with a certain vigor that others would not. And
Passion.
I'm
It's
the
called
same.
passion, baby, passion.
And I'm exactly the same, you know. So I understand where you're coming from. And so that's why we get along so well. Absolutely. So can you tell me, not only just in fashion, but what other influences have you picked up along the way that have helped you express yourself in such a way?
I'm very much a music fan. And I feel like, you know, there's soundtracks to our lives. And so a lot of times, a certain song always resonates when I'm working. That's helped me that has pushed me through. And that's from childhood, because my parents were really into music. You know, my mom has told me stories of her pushing me in a stroller to see Run DMC rap in the park before they were really the big Run DMCs, right? And so, and
Wow.
yeah, and like being what my first songs were, which was Shalimar and Evelyn Champagne King. So, I'm dating myself, I was a disco baby, but my mom was just really, she loved to dance, and she loved music. So, she would give me songs to sort of push me along. Like one that really stood out for me was when I was 10 years old, and it was the Get Fresh crew, Keep Rising to the Top, right? And to this day, that song, it resonates in certain times of my life, and it's a reminder, right? It's a reminder, like, remember who you are and don't half step.
Right on.
And also LL Cool J, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years, and I'm sure that might resonate with you as well, because we have
Absolutely.
experience. And what happens in the arts, sometimes it can be a bit ageist. They may think you're not hip or you're not. But with that, I just think with the arts in general, we're all children at heart. So that once we're adults, we're all adults. We're all the same age. But it can feel that way, and especially when it comes to relevancy. But nothing, you cannot buy experience, and so
Awesome. Now let's break down the arts as expressed through the Black lens, and taking each art separately. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on them and your influence with that. For example, when it comes to the literary arts, um, I've been heavily influenced by Alex Haley, autobiography of Malcolm X, Amiri Baraka, Blues People, up until today with Ta-Nehisi Coates and his brilliant work Between the World and Me and The Water Dancer. These were all like beautifully expressed artistic endeavors through the Black lens, and they helped shape me and how I see the world. Just wanted to know, how do you feel about the literary arts and how they've influenced you?
Oh, for sure. From Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, and Asada Shakur. My mother gave me her book to read when I was about 11 years old. So um, it's so important
Nice.
to and I hope that my son will be able to appreciate all of the writings of even to Langston Hughes. I too am America.
Right.
Still resonates with me today. It's always a reminder that being someone that has I started out in my career in corporate, and over the past few years have transitioned to finally being able to have my own voice with my own brand. The fact that sometimes people of color have to sit in meetings and boardrooms, and maybe there aren't as many people sitting there looking like us and feeling and being made to feel invisible. And so that particular poem always resonates with me.
Awesome. Okay, and shifting gears, um, how do you feel about the dramatic arts? Like, who has influenced you through the dramatic arts from a Black perspective? Like, for me, example, of course, Denzel's the GOAT. I honestly feel like Denzel's the GOAT just because of the range of characters. I mean, like from a slave to a jazz musician in Mo Better Blues, that was one of the most influential movies to me. I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to be that, so Denzel's the GOAT for me personally. But, also I see that, Sidney Poitier paved the way for him, and Harry Belafonte paved
For
the way
sure. Yeah,
and
for sure.
and I mean, and their activism was potent in their art. So those were my influences. Just want to know, were there any that influenced you?
I would have to the same for me. And then I have to add too, Whoopi Goldberg, because she wasn't
Come on.
She wasn't conventional beauty standard in that time. And so that's a big deal, that she is one of the, maybe if one of the biggest actresses as far as in regards to, as far as if you want to say monetary success and accolades. And she was not like the status quo.
Absolutely, absolutely. Were there any visual artists that have heavily influenced you?
Ernie Barnes is one of the epitome of like, I just feel like, we're people don't know this, but we went to high school together, so we're from the same generation. But I feel like that's the epitome of what kind of groomed us. We are from such an awesome era. We've gone from, you know what I mean? We went from the great span, right? Because it's like the highlight of music, very great art. And I just think, Ernie Barnes is one of those artists where you look at it and it just moves you,
Absolutely. Now, I didn't even know that Ernie Barnes went to school with us. Full
I
disclosure,
did not know that.
Mo and I went to music and art here in New York City at the same time.
Rello H.
Graduated the same year, so I know it doesn't look like it because she looks so much younger than I. But we went to school at the same exact time, so we were basically influenced by the same things because we grew up in the same city at the same time. And it's been an absolute blessing to be around other artists in totally different genres and facets and fields, but we all had a common goal of expressing ourselves and expressing what the world looked like to us through our art.
And I have to also mention the fact that we were, a lot of us were some kids were latchkey kids. The TV raised some of our generation.
Facts.
So, it just can be controversial, but I don't care. But to me, the Cosby Show also was the epitome of activism in that time for Black families.
Preach. It really was. I mean, like, they set the gold standard of what a Black family should look like. Both parents were professionals. They were happy within themselves. Then they came together to create to create basically an empire, like a small empire unto themselves, and raise their children, not exactly to be like them, but just to have the freedom to express themselves. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. You're absolutely right. That, and then it spawned a different world. And then everybody wanted to go to college because they wanted to be cool, like the college kids at the time on Different World. I mean, like, very influential on our generation. And I think that's one of the reasons why research says that Black women are the most educated people in the country, and it was definitely in large part because of the visuals that we saw growing up.
Thank you, Claire Huxtable.
Come on, Felicia Rashad. Oh, the queen. Come on, man.
The one thing I would, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but one thing I would like to definitely touch on is activism in not just in the arts, but what's called activism now today. I just I find it interesting that people call themselves activists now, and they're being celebrated in Vogue magazine and all these things. Were they really labeled as activism, back in history, or is it the fact that now that we're in a different time and that's just the atmosphere and that's what we do now? You know what I mean? Were they calling people activism back then? That's a good question. I think I need to research that, but I just feel like it's a little different today than it was back then. Or not that I was living back then, but I just feel like I don't know. I just activism is seen a little bit differently. I feel like, you know, we have what's called leaders. They're called leaders, but then like many of us are like, well, they're not. That's not my leader. And so I question, you know,
I'm pretty sure just throughout the centuries and decades, there have been different forms of activism, even though they were expressed the same way. The activism that Frederick Douglass had is going to be totally different than the activism that you know, John Brown had. But you know, they both used print media. Thomas Paine um, wrote Common Sense, and those were forms of communication to get their point across that, you know, slavery was wrong, and that right there is a form of protest in itself, especially at a time when there are a lot of rich white people making money off of black bodies. That still goes on to today. And so now we have Instagram, where you still have media to get your point across. It's similar, but it's different. The same way they were activists, personally, I would say they're activists as well, because these are the times we're living in. This is the form of communication we have to get our message across.
Well, I
So
thought we had this conversation behind the scenes about the use of social media and the fact that sometimes it's what do you call it, trauma porn, right?
yes,
And
right.
we're seeing a lot of trauma porn, and I have to agree. I feel that I don't know if I don't necessarily feel like there's a balance in regards to activism where it's on a more of the opposite spectrum, where it's more positive, positive reinforcement, versus the trauma porn. And maybe you can explain what trauma porn is, in case, you know, someone is like, what are they talking about?
Absolutely, and I don't mind name dropping. It's kind of like if you go to Sean King's Instagram account, and every time you see it, or at least every time I saw it, I was seeing another black person being brutalized, being beat, being killed, and it got to a point where I had to just get off of it. I just can't. I can't stomach seeing it anymore, because it's damaging. It's traumatizing. It's kind of like back in the day. Every year you didn't see a book. You didn't see an Uncle Tom's Cabin, and it's content. All you see are books like Uncle Tom's Cabin. You don't always see books like Huckleberry Finn. You don't always see books like Roots. You don't always see, you know, like every book that came out has to deal with black people being mutilated. I mean, like, come on, like there has to be range.
Well, it can also be it's also desensitizing,
Right.
and it when you constantly see that, and not that we need to be reminded, of course, because obviously it's been ignored,
No
but
doubt.
is it like making it norm, the fact that you see it every day? But I guess it's just, we don't have a choice, but we have to keep bringing it to the public attention so that maybe it stops.
Right. The hardest thing in the world to do is balance. That's why everybody preaches it. Balance, balance, because it's the hardest thing to do. You see acrobats on top of a wire,
Yeah.
and you see them run, and you see them walk across that thing. You marvel at it, because it's the hardest thing in the world to do. That means your frequencies have to be totally in line to do that. And so I think that's the one thing that we all have to just do our best to master. Just master balance. You know, it's okay to get your message across, but I've heard people say that Lauryn Hill's early work was a bit preachy, and it was, but still, there has to be a balance to the point where, like, imagine if she did come out with a record every year, just like Miss Education. After a while, people would have been like, okay, oh, I get it. Slow down. So that's why it's I'm not saying not to be not to be unapologetically. No, I want you to be unapologetically Black, but you don't want people to be desensitized to your message. So just balance it out.
So we're gonna have Family Stand join us, and you have some background with them. Can you, would you like to share before we have them come on?
Yes, one of the members of Family Stand, V. Jeffrey Smith, is like an uncle to me. He's a mentor. I met him a couple of years back while performing with outstanding guitarist Marcus Machado. And from the first rehearsal, me and V. Jeffrey just clicked, and we started working together. He brought me under his wing and brought me into the Black Rock Coalition, and we started doing these shows, and I've just been picking up things and learning from him about the industry, about how to say what you want to say and need to say unapologetically. And it all culminated with perform at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And that was when I got a chance to meet the other members of Family Stand. So I'm sitting there and I was able to sit down with them, have a meal with them, talk to them, and listening to the wisdom that they had was just an absolute blessing. So that, like, they're the Family Stand, but for me, they are family.
Cool.
And for our first guest for Above the Culture podcast, we are going to introduce a legendary Black group that has trailblazed in the form of activism and the arts. And we are so honored and with reverence, we introduce to you. And hi, guys, how are you? Ladies and gentlemen, Sandra St. Victor.
Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
Hello.
I'm good. I'm good. How y'all doing this beautiful morning in New York?
Good.
Where I wish I was.
Oh, feeling blessed and highly favored.
Hey, same.
Oh, I'm gonna say something holy and spiritual too. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Peter Lord. How are you today, sir?
How you doing, my friend? How are you?
Good.
I'm up and got that Los Angeles time. So, but fortunately, I contemplate the universe at 4:00 in the morning.
My man, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you.
Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate. Good to see you again, man.
You hear me?
I know, it's good to see you too. Absolutely.
Looking healthy, wealthy, and wise.
You hear me?
Absolutely.
Hi, Mo. How you doing, Mo?
Hi. I'm so excited to meet everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, you too.
I feel like I know you already.
Oh, you will.
Oh, okay.
In just a few.
All right. Looking forward, babes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. V. Jeffrey Smith. We are so honored and happy to have you today, sir.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
you can.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Early. This is kind of early for us Negroes. I mean, we're not.
Yeah, well, I don't know about
Not
you.
on
I'm a
the
Black man.
plantation.
21st
Not on
century.
the
I wake up.
I'm usually not up this early, but it's great to see y'all. It's great to see
Wow.
everyone.
Well, you don't know how happy and how excited it is to see all three of you again. I feel like it's been ages since the pandemic that all of us have been able to just sit down and chop it up. So I just feel like this is such a blessing to have you guys here. And we're here talking about activism and the arts. And as our initial episode, Mo and I decided that having you guys as our first guest would be essential because you guys are trailblazers and you really paved the way for modern Black artists to express themselves through their art. So what we like to do is just get sort of a background of how you guys even got into tailoring your art towards activism. And maybe Sandra, ladies first, always.
Yes, sir. All right. All right. You usually make Peter start, but it's and I know for me as a kid, even when I was just realizing that I had a voice, I and started playing the kalimba, and I wrote a song called "I Am an Egyptian Queen," and this is a young child. But I've always been attracted to, and as we all have, Stevie Wonder's lyrical prowess in being able to craft a song that's not preachy, but still teaches, and you can groove to it without even knowing, maybe subconsciously, that you're learning and growing from it, and that being my background, Stevie, Earth, Wind and Fire, shoot, even some of Parliament stuff, on the space tip. I've always been attracted to what I used to call, I don't say that anymore, but what I used to call message music. When that was as a child, I said, I want to be a message music singer. That's what I said. And, the things that I've read as a child, from Lao Tzu to Tao Te Ching to the destruction of the Black civilization by, William Chancellor. I mean, all of those things feed into who I am and feed into my music just naturally.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I know I'm in awe of you guys, and I always have been since I was young in New York City watching you guys on Video Music Box. But I know, I'm pretty sure that Mo has a couple of questions for you guys as well.
Yeah, but first I really want an introduction for all, maybe some of the millennials or people that are not as familiar. Like, how did you guys get started as a group?
Go ahead, guys.
I'll talk. Okay.
You want me to take that? I'll take that.
Yeah.
Since it kind of started, well, Peter and I met through a mutual friend. His name was Will Downing. I think some of you millennials might know him. And we were working together. Will and I were working together. We did a lot of session work together. We wrote songs together, and Pete was also working with. He knew Will, and he wanted he requested a solo from a flute player. He needed a flute player to play on one of the songs song that he wrote that I still remember till this day, that we could put out, that could still be a hit. So Will let me hear the song, and I said, I got to meet this guy. I don't know, I got to meet him. And just something about his writing and his and the way he structured his songs and his lyrics, and it just kind of connected with me. So we met. Long story short, we met, and we just started working together, and we were doing a lot of production work for record companies, and we met Sandra actually through another mutual friend, Lisa Fisher. I knew Lisa from I met Lisa at a session, the Billy Ocean session that I did back in 1983. And because we had a bunch of women doing our demos, and we met. I'm just kind of condensing this for time. We had a bunch of women doing demos for us, and Lisa was doing demos for us as well. And she started going on the road with Luther Vandross and Rolling Stones. And we said we needed a singer. So she hooked us up. She said, oh, my girl Sandra lives in Dallas. And at that time, we happened to be going to Dallas to produce this group called the Mac Band. And they happened to be she happened to be on tour with Luther. So she hooked us up at a concert together. And I guess y'all can take it from there.
Yeah.
Sandra, y'all can take it from there.
Well, I was waiting for Sandra to tell the story of how we met and how warm we were to one another.
Well, maybe Sandra should take it from here.
Oh, there was warmth involved? All right, I'm going to hear warmth.
There was, but it was just, I was just misunderstood as I am today. But no, no, we met Sandra there at the concert, and I walked up to Sandra and said, "Hi, I'm little Peter Lord," and she turned up her nose at me, and then.
That's why they call it his story.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll get to the point. We eventually started working with Sandra, and the thing is that immediately Sandra had the vibe and energy that was a perfect fit for the group. Coming out of where this is like late 80s, like very late 80s, literally like 2 months before 1990 almost. But and this, at least for me personally, whatever was going on much in the mainstream of the 80s was not necessarily satisfying for me musically. And we were partially, for lack of a better term, to be funny a little bit, we were a little bit of the Jerry Curl, poppy funk era, and we weren't about that. Not so much, I mean, it was conscious but unconscious, but you just look at that album cover, well, the first album when we Yvonne Jefferson the stand, but especially once you get to Chain and Ghetto Heaven, I look back in the cover and I'm like, wow, what were we thinking? Because nobody was really looking like that as a quote unquote, well, I'm glad we were thinking that way, R&B band, and we didn't think about it by ourselves. It was just a music band, and though as we were signed to by Sylvia Ronan, Merlin Bob, after Timmy Regisford, had told them about us. We were supposed to be a regular kind of producers working with our artists, but we knew we kind of really wanted to be a band. So we snuck that in there behind their backs in front of their face. And we had bigger stories to tell and a wider range of things. Back to the original question of activism, the thing is, fortunately or unfortunately, all of us grew up in an era where, Stevie, Beatles, James, Sly, these people, these teachers were great artists who wrote great songs, had the vibe, had the funk, had the crunch, but told stories in a natural way. And so by the time we have our first hit as a band, Ghetto Heaven, that kind of encapsulized all those elements, and coming out of that 80s, also all those singers, there was a certain kind of sound from that time, from bands who happened to be Black but making music. And I get it, that R&B, based on the history of the culture to a large extent, as much as it's rebellious music, is also soothing music, so even in the nature of a thing about backgrounds, and I use this often as an example, Kashif and great producers like that, who had some great hits, but a lot of times it was a smoothed out kind of like so fine, blow down, doom doom, was all that boom boom, and that stuff was slick and dope. But I wasn't that intelligent, so I needed to not be so slick and dope, and I didn't want to hear that And then I heard Sandra singing, I heard, oh, that's what we need to hear. Okay. We need that grit, that soul. I used to tell the singers, like, don't sing it so perfect and smooth. Don't blend. All right. They'd be like, what do you mean don't blend? We're supposed to be right here, right now. I said, no, I want it right here, right now, So
yeah, that I do well. That I do.
Yeah, she does that very
I
well.
don't blend well at all. No.
She does both well.
I can't blend, but I prefer.
I actually read that I guess what was it when someone from Soul to Soul helped with the album?
No.
Okay.
No. The album was complete, and they took they heard it and they loved it, and they said we don't hear any singles. And they took one of the, so remember I wrote Ghetto Heaven, and they took the album version of Ghetto Heaven and gave it to Jazzy B and the actual guy. What's the other guy's name?
Nelly Cooper, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Nelly Cooper.
I would say, no, let me say this. They did. No, at first they didn't hear a single.
They didn't hear a single.
And then we wrote Ghetto Heaven and said, oh, that's the single.
Right. And then they remade that.
Yeah, and then there was a suggestion that Jazzy B and Nelly Hooper were very high at the time, and they said, "Well, make it do a remix," Yeah. So that's how. Yeah.
So the radio version was usually that's the one
that's the one everybody knows. I mean, I recall quite clearly how those first shows after Ghetto Heaven became a hit, and you got audiences coming in, expecting to hear a show full of Ghetto Heaven and Soul to Soul, and they hear Ghetto Heaven probably toward the end of the show, but before that we was going singing, Sweet Liberation and our Chain and these rock funks things. And I saw how our audience sort of changed, from the most of the Ghetto Heaven waters to the rock black funk, edgy crowd. I watched the audience change, and it worked for us. I mean, that was actually a fortunate thing, because we could have fallen off the map because we were not a copy of Soul to Soul, and that's what radio was looking for, and that's the support that they put behind us to become that, and we just were never that. But the audience found us all over the world.
That's great.
Absolutely.
And that's why you're still around.
You know what I mean? Like that, and a lot of vitamins, girl, and just the work that I've had done. No, I'm just kidding. I've had no work done. So, yeah, we've been blessed, and I think we can all admit that.
Yeah, I came upon I love the song you have about it's called Michelle.
Song for Michelle.
Yeah, Song for Michelle. I love it. Who wrote it?
Big guy up there. Yeah. Well, there's two big guys up there, but the high yellow big guy.
Yeah, I wrote it, but we made it a reality. So it's still it's still the band made it a reality. But it was just and I hate to use the word inspired, but I guess it came through during a playful time with my two kids at the table. I'm like, oh, this sounds pretty cool, and at the time and the times we're still in, we were in the midst of the election, that was taking place, and the pandemic and the culmination of 4 years of lies, or frosting on the cake of 400 years of lies. And it was just about us saying we are spiritually involved, and because from a political point of view or from a strategic point of view, oftentimes we have to turn the other cheek, and that is the thing that we have to do often. But though we might turn the other cheek on certain levels, there's a certain point where you have to confront the authoritarianism and the fascism that's going on firsthand. So, from Plantation Radio to Song from Michelle, it's just we've been consistent with the context. But even with all those songs, again, we're telling stories. So, and we're not necessarily preaching. We're just pointing out the Adolf Giuliani, Freudian slip. And
hey, listen, it is what it is.
It wasn't. But anyway, but Adolf Giuliani and you know, Itch McConnell. Yeah. So we have to, call them out for
No,
what they are.
speak your talk.
Yeah,
That's
in
good.
a
That's
pleasant
what we're
way,
here for.
with a beat,
Mhm.
With a beat. There you go. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, getting back to your first album, your first couple of albums. I mean, you right out the gate, you're starting with like "Sweet Liberation" and plantation songs and plantation radio, and I mean, it's such a strong message. I mean, like you guys don't sugarcoat anything. You lay it right there on the line. And as Sandra alluded to, like, so she was saying that she read a lot of books about Black empowerment, and influenced by the masters who preached Black empowerment. Just wanted to know about you, Peter, you, V. Jeff. Just wanted to know what were your early influences to bring about those type of songs early on.
Well, for me, I came up in those times where we were writing about, where it was kind of a natural thing for artists to write about those kind of things. You're talking about late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s, 80s. It kind of fell off because there was a transition happening with, particularly with music, where things sonically started changing because of the introduction of computers and drum machines. So we went through pretty much a transition period in the 80s. That's why the music kind of sounded kind of mechanical and sterile, most of it, because you went from a lot of live playing, a lot of live performances, to now where everybody and their mama thinks that they could produce music because, it just got easier to press a button and,
Yes.
I mean, it just got so much easier for any and everybody to just press a button. But even with that, there's like a learning curve and something to learning how to do that too. But coming up, we had a lot of artists like Pete and Sandra said, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Richie Havens, the Beatles. We were listening to a lot of, and was influenced. And not only that, what was happening at that time in the world had a lot of influence in how you wrote your songs. You conveyed your messages. So, just being in those times was pretty much enough. Just like now, it's kind of almost a resurgence of what was happening in the 60s and the 70s. People are getting more political. I mean, you're hearing more social songs. People are just kind of going back to that because, there was a period, we went through partying, and now it's just, you just got to get back to the real of what's happening, and unfortunately, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, what has happened for the last 4 years or so had to happen for us to get to this, but we're here now. So we just got to deal with what is, deal with what's happening right now. So that's it for me.
Absolutely. Now, it's been a while since. Oh, I'm sorry, Peter, please.
Oh no. Oh, okay, sure. Well, yeah, all the things they said. Also, my father and my sister were very political. In terms of, I grew up with always the news on, and the culmination of all those politics that were around me. My sister one time was a part of the Black nationalists, and Mary Baraka and the Black Panthers. I was a little baby, I was a little kid, but all that energy was kind of around me, and I remember those Last Poets and Gil Scott-Heron albums, and Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. I can just remember being in my basement and listening to those albums forever, and Donny Hathaway, another person to mention, because that's why I ended up going to Howard. I love Donny so much. So those kind of influences, you know, affects your thought. And then I think about the lives we've grown, think about what we've grown up through. We've grown up at the end of Jim Crow, seeing
Pretty much.
Martin and Malcolm assassinated,
Yeah.
Watergate, Reaganism,
Yeah.
crack epidemic, New World Order, the freedom of South Africa and Mandela, then 9/11, then Bush era, Obama, then the culmination of Reagan in the fascism that is today, that mythology, excuse me,
Yeah.
the coffee's kicking in. I'm not going to roll now. But anyway, so it's like, if you're awake and conscious, all that stuff is going to be in your music, especially if you're doing it from a solar place and not from a fashionable place.
Yeah, and like I said, we lived through all of that stuff, so it was pretty much a natural thing for us to have that in our music. I mean, we could have made some other choices, but at the time, we were it was just a natural thing for us to do. Being able to actually live through
it, right?
Yeah, seeing Malcolm get shot, Martin get shot. We lived through that stuff. We were there when that stuff happened. So, it was just natural.
I was literally there when Kennedy was shot.
Yeah.
Wow.
My mom was
You
right
were
there.
right there on the lawn, right?
I was on the block, right?
You seen the guy. Seen the guy.
I know who did it. That's why
you were in the grassy knoll. Okay, you were in the grassy knoll.
And the beautiful thing is none of you look like you were there.
That's correct.
When they say it don't crack, it just doesn't. Like, you're blowing my mind. I'm like, you were there? Oh my goodness.
They were there, what? 1492? No.
Absolutely. Absolutely amazing.
I have a question for Sandra.
Yes,
as a woman in the industry, did you ever feel like it may have been a little bit more challenging, or felt a little resistance, or in regards to finding your place, specifically the fact that the direction that your career has gone into versus maybe something a little bit more mainstream?
Yeah, I've always been asked to not be what I've been trying to be, and certainly the Family Stand and then my solo stuff it was like 10 years for my solo thing, maybe 15 years for Family Stand before the neo soul, before they allowed Erykah Badu and NDRE to be a solo artist and slash woke activist type thing. I was like 10 years before that. Okay, so at that time they really just wanted they wanted me to do a smooth R&B album. It's like after coming out of singing Plantation Radio and Shades of Blue and Moon Scorpio, and it just didn't jive well with me. So yeah, there was resistance. And the beautiful thing at that moment when I first when I had the Warner Brothers deal, they wanted that. That was the first place that I'd been where I felt comfortable in the skin and spirit that I was in. I had the whole team was full of women. It was a woman president of the Black department, the marketing people, the promotions department, publicity, art department, everybody. It was all Black women. And so they put so much energy into allowing me to do what I needed to do, into how I wanted to do it, and to make the record that I felt I should make at that moment. And then at the very last moment, they the higher ups hired a brother to come in to be head of marketing promotion. He literally came in and said, I don't know what this is, I don't get it, and I'm not promoting it. So even then, so he basically, he didn't shelve he just kind of kicked it out. He didn't shelve it, but he threw it out and focused all of his energy on what he understood, which was a smooth R&B, Eric Benet's first album at that moment. Because prior to that, they were putting Eric and I out together, and Eric was opening up for me on shows, right? And he came and flipped that and said, no, we're going to focus on Eric Benet, because I get him. Eric is cool, he's the sweet brother. It has nothing to do with him. It's just about the industry itself. And even Prince wanted me to be a sex vixen, and I was like, yo, dude, really? You And so that was even shocking for me. But then if you take a step back at the things that the women that he worked with, the ones that were successful as opposed to the ones that weren't. So the artists that he was successful with were the ones who were like a palette for him. So you got Vanity that rolled in there. You had Apollonia that rolled in there. You know, even Sheila E. to a certain degree, she wasn't a palette, but she was just a percussionist with just, you know, a natural look. And he just totally remade them and made them into, you know, sex vixens that he could put songs on top of. When he produced Nona Hendrix, when he produced Patti LaBelle, when he produced Shaka Khan, none of those songs, name one song of them that he produced. We don't know, because those were artists that already had their thing.
Yeah, they knew themselves. They knew themselves.
They knew who they were, and that's why I couldn't put out the songs that Prince wanted me to put out, because it wasn't me. You know, it just wasn't me. So, you know, even if people ask me to this day, still, do I regret not releasing the Prince songs? I'm like, nah, I don't. No, I don't. But yeah, it's always going to be for a woman, and maybe it's easier now because, you know, Black women are popular. You know, we're in vogue
now.
We're in vogue now, so so, you know, perhaps it's easier to be who you are. I think it is, you know, than it was then. But there's misogyny, you know that, right? You know, there's misogyny out there. Regardless, there's going to be misogyny. I'm sorry. Go back.
No, that's an incredible story, and I'm so glad you shared that with us, because these are the stories that need to be told, especially in our community, to make our community better. You know, the more we know about things like that happening in our industry, the better we can do. You know, generation after generation, we like, okay, that's what, you know, not saying you, but that's what great grandma had to go through. That's what grandma had to go through. That's what mom had to go through. So now we can do better, generations moving forward. It's like, okay, that's not how we're supposed to do it. Let's do it this way and make it better for our daughters and our granddaughters, and just push the needle forward. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I was curious as to how did the new project come about? Because it's been a little while since the three of you have blessed us with new music and given us that activist voice through the arts. So I just want to know, how did the new music come about?
Is this a new, you have a new album or a new single?
Well, we have a new album coming.
And what number album is this? How many albums have you guys done?
Oh my God.
6, right?
Something like that.
I think 6 or 7, yeah.
6 or 7, something like that.
Let me see. Chapter 10. This is 7.
This is 7.
7, right?
7.
This is what happens when you have a catalog, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's up. That's beautiful.
A catalog spread over 30 years. Yes, 7 years.
Yeah. So what is this album going to be called?
It's going to be called Evolve.
Okay.
And it rose out of the last time we were all together, including JS.
Yeah.
You know, we were at the Black Rock Coalition anniversary, and you know, we all live. Sandra, Jeff, and I live in different parts of the world right now, but you know, whether we speak, whether it's been weeks or days or months, it's always like we're just picking up a conversation that's continued. So you know, we were vibing there and said, hey, you know, maybe we can do a new album, do a few songs, but over a few songs, once we open the gates of creativity, it's not like we're just going to do 2 songs. So then we had 20 songs. And, you know,
because we started out with like 5 or 6 that we were going to do, and it wound up being like 15, right?
We're going to do an EP, and now it's a double album.
Yeah, so this one's dope, that one's dope, you know, but so we, you know, put out singles a long time, but then, you know, then we were supposed to do a little mini tour, and as the family ends, good fortunes usually arise, and there was a pandemic at the time of our tour.
We didn't do that. We didn't do that.
We didn't do it. So yes, it began with us. It wasn't in Hunan province. It was in Hunan, Brooklyn. Who the hell is that, Brooklyn? So
when can we expect to be able to listen to it?
on
Oh,
Jeff's
no, what do you want
39th
to listen to?
birthday.
Yeah, all right, that's right. We got the date. We got it.
On Jeff's 39th birthday, February 25th, we're talking about it.
The 25th, that adds to a 7. This happens to be our 7th album. So
Yes.
that's I don't know if that's a coincidence or ironic, but I remember Keith Don.
No such thing.
No such. Yeah, that's true. I don't believe in luck either.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. There's
yeah.
no coincidences out there. And I believe in numerology too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It matters. So I just dig you guys. Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
Evolve, where how will we be able to purchase it?
It should be this is where Sandra takes over because she's our
Okay.
business person. Sandra
George is
handles
crazy.
all that stuff for us.
I'm a space cadet. No, I just asked somebody to do it. No, it's basically all of your streaming platforms where all aggregators out there is where to be available. So you're talking your Apple Music, your Pandora, your Spotify, your YouTube. We got a couple videos up already. I do have to get that the family stand. I've been trying to. YouTube's so slow, but I've been trying to mesh together the family stand's official YouTube channel with my official YouTube. So we have official artist channel. So things can be, all of that can be in one spot because people search sometimes for one and don't know about the other and vice versa. So yeah, in all your aggregators, wherever you listen to music literally is where it's going to be. We'll see how that goes before we start talking about whether or not we're going to do like something special, like a limited edition press up or something. And once things happen with live performances again, then we absolutely need something like that to add to merch, to have physical copies, hopefully maybe even some wax, because that's the shit. But we'll get to all of that. Right now, we're just gonna put it out on all streaming platforms.
Who came up with the family stand?
And work to get it into some like films and series and that sort of thing, which is how things are really getting more notice and immediate notice nowadays.
Who came up with the name The Family Stand? What does it mean?
Slide in the Family Stone and Merlin Bob.
We were in the office and
y'all go and tell us.
It would have been The Stand and wanted to be,
Right.
but there was a group in Ohio that had the name, and we might have to go through something. But when Jeff and I sat in the office with Merlin Bob, he was saying, "Yeah, this next album, I'm trying to go for a Family Stand vibe. I mean, Family Stone vibe, Sly vibe." And he's like, "Oh, okay, The Stand. Oh, the Family Stand, huh?" And like we were like, "We're glad we thought of it,
Yeah,
So that.
Yeah,
I was there too. I remember that.
Yeah, because the funny thing,
okay.
Yeah, because the funny thing about I remember Merlin Bob just kept reeling off names because we wanted to change the name from the first album, which was Yvonne Jeffries in the Stand, and he kept reeling off names. And when he mentioned Family Stand,
we
we actually looked at each other while we kept rolling off names.
Yeah.
We knew that was the one, so that's how that happened.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's dope.
That's perfect.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means everybody on February 25th, you can pick up the brand new album from Family Stand entitled Evolve, and your new single out. Would somebody please like to introduce the single, because we're definitely going to highlight the single and the new video associated with it. So who would like to introduce it?
Well, we actually had two things out, right?
Yeah, what was Michelle and Paradigm and
Uprise.
Not Paradigm Shift. It was Rise Up.
Rise Up.
Uprise.
Rise Up, Uprise, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you have two singles out.
Well, I don't know. I guess you kind of from the song for Michelle and yeah. So there's a song for Michelle, and there's Rise Up, Uprise.
Which all had to do with what was happening at the time, with the political climate. So we were just kind of putting everything out there. So this is why I say it's so important for artists, you know, along the way to document even if you're not, you might be in some kind of funk through the years, because you know, it kind of gives you an idea where you are at a particular time. Because if you've been in this business for a long time, it's always good to look back and say, okay, this is what I was thinking at that time, or this is where I was at that time. So, you know, it was a natural thing for us to like kind of be involved. And for me, it was no better group or situation for me to be in than with these guys, because these guys are kind of my heroes. They were like me looking up to the Stevies or the Beatles. I was actually in a group with two artists that could actually write like that, you know, and have me express my artistry and my writing. So
Listen to this.
That's beautiful.
yeah, that's what it was for me. That's what it is for me, you know, to be in a group that I could look back and say, okay, I was in a group like the Beatles, or I was in a group like.
Right on.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I call these two guys my musical soulmates, my towers of powers, you know, and I don't feel anywhere safer on stage than between these two men. Never have.
Absolutely.
Never.
I've seen it.
So
You know,
I've seen it firsthand. It's crazy. Absolutely.
special chemistry in it, and the main reason why I did that was an act of love.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That never changes.
Things are the way they're supposed to be. They turn out the way they're supposed to be. They always do. So, you know.
I mean, this song, Rise Up, Uprise was, we weren't going to put it out as a single because we put out Song for Michelle at that moment because we needed to say what we needed to say while Senator Mitch the Bitch was doing his stuff. And it was a perfect moment to put that out. And I had these guys make a really cute video on it as well. This Rise Up, Uprise was a perfect song for a BRC online event that they were having. So as opposed to, and it was just supposed to be like a live performance, but again, us being all in different places, we had to record ourselves individually, and then I just put it together. So it's not a professional video, but I think the sentiment and the energy is perfect for what we're saying because it's raw. It's the three of us, and what's important about the song is the message and is the energy of it, because it makes you want to rise up and uprise. So it has not been released as a single officially, because again, we just did it for that BRC event, but that would more than likely be, if we're gonna, when we get to closer to the February 25th date of release, probably one that we will push as like introducing Evolve, the album.
That's awesome. All right, sweet. Now I'm so glad to be caught up with you guys and actually like knowing what's going on. I had to get off of social media. I don't know what's going on with anybody.
I know you vanished.
I had to dump all of that and just focused on what was right in front of me. But I'm so happy to hear that you guys have come together and y'all have a plan of attack for the new music, because it's a blessing to get music from you guys. And
I love how the conversation was summed up with the word love, because that's really what it's all about.
Amen. Yeah.
Right on.
All you need is love. Wah, 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 wah.
We keeping that. No, that's dope.
All you need is love.
That was fire. Okay, well, I'm done. Just Mo, do you have anything else to add?
No, it's been a pleasure. I've always enjoyed your music, and now I love it even more. And I look forward to hearing your new album along with everyone else.
Yeah, it's really, really, really dope. And maybe JS will turn you on to it. You have a copy of it, right, Jay?
No, I don't.
You don't? Why not?
I don't have a copy of anything. The only thing I have a copy of is the joint I played on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get you guys some pre things to listen to. Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll hook you up.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
And we're so happy to give you your flowers while you are here.
Yo,
We
thank
love
you.
you. We love you. We love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love you
Thank
too.
you. We
Thank y'all
appreciate
for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Be
success
blessed.
with the podcast. I'll be watching.
Yeah, we'll share it with people. Let them know you're
Thank
happy.
you.
What it's about.
We're excited. We think we
Spread the wealth.
yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Love
All right.
y'all.
Love you.
Later.
Bye.